we don't talk about death much in our society. And that confuses me, because it's something we all know we're going to go through, but it scares people to talk about it. You try talking about it to people, death, la 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 la, don't want to hear about it. Well, I believe that the only way to really beat a fear is to bring it out into the open, to name it, to normalise it, to make it more everyday. So how would that look? Imagine if you were talking on the phone to a friend. Hello, darling. Isn't it exciting? We're both one day closer to dying. Woo! I can't wait to find out what happens, can you? I'm counting on that tunnel of white light. I'm going to be up there like a rat up a drain pipe, I tell you. Those angels won't have to call me twice. So have you decided what you're wearing for your burial, darling? No? I'm going to have to get my coffin extended, you know, so I can wear these fabulous stilettos that I just can't bloody walk in. It's a fantastic opportunity, isn't it? Now, of course, I'm making fun about it. But if we can't talk and even laugh a little about death that occurs naturally, how are we ever going to talk about more challenging deaths like suicide and self-euthanasia? Death isn't a punishment in this country, thankfully. But by talking about death, we can become better. If we ignore it, it won't go away. And by talking about death, we can actually be better prepared for our own and for those around us. And by talking about suicide, we might actually save a life. My father, Fred, talked about death all the time, but he was an unusual man, and he was way ahead of his time. He was a working class man, self-educated, intelligent, and very innovative. In 1951, before I was born, he actually built our house and made the bricks himself. Every weekend, he'd tie his ladder and his toolkit onto the side of his ex-army motorbike, pop Mum on the back, and then fill up the sidecar with their 4 kids. Off they'd go down to Henley Beach, and Mum and the kids would go swimming while he worked on the house. In 1960, he built a solar hot water heater over our house. He made all of the solar panels look like an awning over the lounge room window because he couldn't get council approval. The council didn't know what a solar hot water heater was. But he built it anyway. He was like that. And it heated the hot water in our house for over 20 years. He brewed his own beer before it was legal and loved being so wicked about it. He ground his own muesli before there was a name for it. He treated our colds with apple cider vinegar and honey, and he taught us about vitamins and chiropractic and acupressure. He was a rebel, he was an atheist, and he was a good father. And he refused to be controlled by anything he didn't really believe in. He loved whiskey, he loved golf, and he loved his family. And not necessarily in that order, but most of all, he loved our mother Jeannie. And he always told us that when she died, if she died first, he would kill himself. So when my mother died, just after their 60th wedding anniversary, I realised that I was the only person in our really large family who actually believed he'd do it. So I called him to talk about it. And I said, Fred, I'm coming up to be with you. I don't want you to die alone. Please wait for me. He was a little surprised that I was willing to do that, but he agreed to wait. Now I have to say, I was biding time, I was buying time. My mother had just died. I didn't want my father to self-euthanize, even though I respected his right to do that at age 89 while he wanted to die with dignity. But I just needed to catch my breath. So I went to stay with him and we talked about it a lot, and it was really quite bizarre. Do you remember, Fred and Jean used to watch that game show called The Wheel of Fortune, do you remember, when they had the big wheel? Everyone would spin it, the contestants, and they had to buy letters so they could figure out a phrase. Mum and Dad used to like to watch that, so he and I would watch it together. And this is kind of what it looked like. We didn't have shoes like that there. And we'd be watching telly, saying, Fred would go, "What are you doing on the weekend, Petty?" "Oh, miss a turn. Bugger. I'm doing a self-development course, Fred." Buy a vowel! Buy a vowel! "Well, I might kill myself on Saturday then while you're at that." "But I don't like that you'd have to come home and find me, you know. Oh, we bought an A. Can you figure out what the phrase is?" "I don't mind finding you, Fred, that's what I'm here for. But, you know, if you do it on Saturday, I'll have to leave my course to talk to the police and everything. And I'll lose my money." "Barrel of monkeys! It's a barrel of monkeys!" "You're so good at this, lovey. Just like Jeannie was." "Well, I don't want you to lose your money. How about next Tuesday?" And that's how it would go. Me buying more time and him changing his plan. I've been a spiritual person all my life. I read cards, I work with energy, I talk to spirit guides, and I trust my intuition above all else. So off I go to my course on Saturday, and just before morning tea, my internal alarm system went off big time. Go home now. Crap, Fred. I raced home to find him unconscious on the floor. He was still alive, but he was not responding to stimuli. This was it. This was the real deal. Sitting on the floor with him, I realised that all of my training, everything in my life, had been to prepare me for this moment. I was willing to go to jail to defend his right to die as he chose. So why was I sent home to interrupt him? I called in my spirit guides. "I need help here." The spirit of my mother stood up beside me and I said, "Jeannie, what has happened here?" And she said, "He's been a silly old bastard." And she stepped back. Mum was a Catholic. She didn't believe in his plan. So I called in my spirit guide. And he said, "He must not die now. He must not die now." All of this happened in a moment. I raced to call the ambulance and they got him to hospital just minutes away, where he had to be resuscitated, bringing him back to the life that he was so keen to leave. I'd become his betrayer, but fortunately my father loved me enough to forgive me that once we'd talked it through. Now, I want to make it really clear that I'm not an advocate of suicide. Quite the opposite. I work in suicide prevention. And I'm talking about two very different things here, though both of their statistics are all rolled together. One is the suicide rate of people in depression, disconnection, loss, despair, who can often be helped by being heard, by being supported, and by being connected with ongoing help. The other is a very voluntary and very considered ending to a rich, purposeful and well-lived life by an 89-year-old man who chose to die while he still had dignity, he had independence, and he was still the authority in his own life. Both of these subjects, however, need to be brought out from their current incarceration in the catacombs of our culture and resoundingly slapped on the table of open public forum. Australia has the highest suicide rate in the world per capita. Suicide is the leading cause of death in Australians between the age of 15 and 44. Over 2,500 people kill themselves every year, and that number is increasing. That's 1 every 4 hours. 3 out of 4 of them are men. Twice as many people die of suicide as do on our roads, even though some of our road deaths are actually suicides. And 10 times more people kill themselves than are murdered. We really are a do-it-yourself society. Another 75,000 people attempt suicide without dying. That's 1 every 10 minutes. This is a hidden epidemic. Why aren't we seeing this in our papers and seeing it on our televisions? Why aren't we talking about this openly and healthily so that we can help prevent it? Probably everyone in this room is likely to have been touched by suicide in some way, or they will be. And where is our government in this hidden epidemic? Last year, Lifeline took over 700,000 calls. Another 160,000 people hung up because they were on hold for too long. Now, there are a lot of people out there who need someone to talk to. Not all of those calls were suicide related, but there are thousands of people alive because of the support and information they're given by the well-trained volunteers who man the phones. Lifeline is currently lobbying the government to increase their funding so that they can shorten the wait time for their callers. The highest incidence of suicide in Australia, and therefore the world, occurs in men over the age of 85. On September 11, 2002, Fred became one of those statistics. I wasn't with him when he died, but he's often with me, encouraging me to talk about his story. Because he spoke so openly about his intention to die, I was able to love him, support him, and be with him in a way that I couldn't possibly have been if he'd been silent. We can never really know what's going on for another person, but sometimes just asking, "Are you okay?" and being willing to really listen to the answer, even if you don't like it. That can be what can save a life. While I've been talking to you, another Australian has attempted suicide. Let's hope they didn't succeed, and let's talk about it.